Want to take a look at graphing monopolistic competition here. And remember, there's a difference between the short run and the long run. So let's first approach how you would draw this here. Okay, so we're going to start with the short run. Again, this is monopolistic. Monopolistic competition. So markets such as restaurants, fast food, very competitive, but products can be differentiated. So back to our graph. Now the short run for monopolistic competition is going to be the exact same as our monopoly graph. Okay, so start here, right? Because we only have one firm, the demand curve that firm faces is equal to the market demand curve, right? So we draw a demand curve. Now we're also going to have marginal revenue here. Okay, now firms also face cost curves, right? Just like they did in the other markets. So we're going to have an average total cost curve with a U shape. We're going to have a swoosh that goes through the minimum point that is the marginal cost. All right, so if I wanted to figure out how this firm was doing, right, we set profit maximizing where MR equals MC, just like always, right? So here's our marginal revenue, here's our marginal cost, so we're at this point here. So let's come down. All right, so they figure Q star there is going to be their profit maximizing quantity. But because we're talking about a monopoly market, they can essentially charge whatever price the market will bear. So at that quantity, market is willing to pay P star. So they're able to charge up here even though the quantity is way down here. I'm sorry, the quantity is here, but this is not a point here, right? They move the price up here. That's the key thing. Now, if you figure the profits, you got to compare the price with the average total cost curve. So you get the cost there. So then if you're shading the profit box, it should be right there. Now, let's come over here and think about this market, same market, but in the long run. So the key here is that because of this market structure, firms are have low barriers to entry and exit, right? So what happens if we see profits, and again, these are economic profits here, firms will tend to enter this industry, right? They see that large profit box and they want to make a share of it for themselves. So what that tends to do in the long run is shift the demand curve, right? If you have other restaurants coming in competing, then the market is able to substitute those in, right? So you have a reduction in demand for the firm we're talking about. So what that ends up looking at is, so let's draw our average total cost curve. So we still have the same cost curves, right? They should be approximately similar here. But what ends up happening is that the demand curve, oops, I went ahead and erased my marginal cost curve there. Demand curve shifts left such that when we calculate our profit maximizing quantity, it's going to touch the average total cost curve right where it hits that demand curve. So if we were to calculate our price, again, this is our quantity down here that we're producing. But this is the price, right? Because that's on the demand curve. Sorry about this here, as came. Now, if we were to calculate profits of this firm, we compare it with the average total cost curve, right? Which is coming through here. So revenues are here, price times quantity. Costs just happen to be at the same point, right? Happens to be the same level as P, and we have the same quantity, right? So we're subtracting revenues minus revenues minus costs. So we're going to get zero economic profit in the long run. And this, again, is monopolistic competition, short run versus long run. So the key here is a monopoly. In the short run, it's the same graph as a monopoly, exact same. And we would expect profits to be made. And then because of the market structure, we know firms will enter because of those profits, thereby shifting the demand curve leftward until those economic profits are reduced to zero, right? So what you have is the average total cost curve hitting the demand curve at this point, right, where the quantity is. So when you calculate profits there, it should come out to be zero in the long run.